I'm really happy to be here and talk to you guys about how to redesign a modern application to work on European cloud. And thank you very much to UpCloud for inviting us here. It's really fun to be here and see so many people as well. And my name is Peter. I am CTO at Hailey HR and one of the founders of Hailey as well. I'm going to go through what Hailey is on the next slide. And then I'm going to speak a little bit about the background, going into why we are changing. So I'm going to speak a bit about our dev department at Hailey, how that works, why it's important for us as an HR tech company to have a strong foundation in GDPR future-proofing, and give you a bit of an architectural overview, which I usually don't get to go into technical details, but I guess since it's a technical audience, I get to speak a bit more about technical stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And then tell you a bit about how our architecture fits with UpCloud as well, and how we had it on Azure before. And then a bit about our future, what's in the making at Hailey for our architecture and our infrastructure. And if anyone has any questions, I always like to have questions when I present, so just raise your hand. That's perfectly fine. Otherwise, we can take questions afterwards as well. I'm also going to say hi to my colleagues here as well. I have 5 colleagues from Hailey, 6 colleagues from Hailey joining me here today. 4 of them have Hailey t-shirts, so if you want to speak to any one of those, you can find them outside later. Especially if you want to buy an HR system, you should speak to Simon here.
Or just see a review.
Yeah. So Hailey, we started about 5 years ago in 2020. We are now 150 employees, 40 developers, and about almost 1,000 clients mostly in the Nordics. And we are on a mission to create an HR platform that has all HR functionality in it, one platform for HR. And we really want managers and employees to like the HR system, so they actually use it. Because most older systems in HR are not actually used. So that's what we are aiming for. We are currently at an annualized recurring revenue of 130 million. And we're growing quite rapidly, as you can see. We are 100,000 users on the platform currently. Our clients are quite happy with us. Both in onboarding, they gave us a rating of 9 out of 10. And a net promoter score of 57. So they're quite happy with the customer journey. We also have a couple of awards that we have gotten for one of the best workplaces in the mid-sized companies, and also some UX awards for ease of use. So this is the dev department at Hailey. We are, as I said, about 40 developers. We are about 50-50 men and women, which I'm quite happy with. It's not that usual for software development departments to have that kind of balance. We also, during our 5 years, we actually only have 2 people leaving us, which I'm also very happy with. And I think something that stands out in our development department is the collaboration. We really liked working together a lot. And we have a couple of things that we are using to promote that. Of course, we are using the Scrum framework, Scrum-ish, as I would say, since most companies don't follow it that strictly. I guess one of the largest things that we are doing that is not in Scrum is that we rotate our teams. We are currently dividing our teams into 8 teams. And each sprint, which is 3 weeks for us, we rotate so that all developers get to work with each other over time. This has a number of benefits. For example, everybody gets to work in the same way. You learn from each other a lot. So all the teams know how to write a similar code. All developers also work on all different parts of the application, which means that if a team has a need of more resources during a sprint and one team finishes early, we can actually move people and get them productive right away. So quite large benefit, I would say, about having that structure. We are also focusing on involving our developers quite early in researching requirements on how we're going to build the system. So very early on, before we start building, they are involved, and even during the construction of Hailey, when a developer actually builds the stuff, they can just raise their hand and say if they think something is being badly constructed, and a product owner listens to them. We don't really work with deadlines, which is kind of hard to resist. But I think that software is finished when it's finished, not when the deadline passes. And I think that's quite important if you're going to produce quality over time. If you have a lot of deadlines and produce fast, you may not get very good quality in your code base. If you have a good quality, which means that maybe you haven't rushed development, then you can accelerate further on instead. We usually release functionality to our production environment about 20 to 30 times a day. So small increments all the time. And then we also have uphold our zero bug policy, which doesn't mean that we don't have bugs, because we do, and all software have a lot of bugs. But what we mean here is that we have a policy that when we find bugs, we have a dedicated team to fixing our bugs. So sometimes we're actually at 0 bugs, known bugs in Hailey. This is Jacob, our head of legal, in our legal department. I told him to make a strong picture for us here. GDPR is really important, and data security is really important for us. As a HR tech company, we keep a lot of sensitive personal data in our system. We keep personal data about like bank accounts, sensitive information and so on, but also like feedback conversations that should not be made public in any way. It should be kept secret. We have salary information, so quite a lot of sensitive data, whistleblowing information. And our customers trust us with this information and to keep that safe and secure for them. Our customers are also very concerned about what's happening in the world and are following that quite closely. GDPR is, I would say, currently compliant with the American Cloud Act, but it hasn't always been like that. And it might not always be that way. There are current cases that pits them together against each other. And what we started thinking about a couple of years ago, at least, is that we want to be future-proof for our customers, so they can safely rely on us to keep their personal data safe and don't have to worry about what kind of verdicts are up and coming in the EU. And then we started looking for other cloud platforms or cloud providers than Azure, which was the platform we have built Hailey on from the start. It's not that easy to find in a European-owned cloud platform, so we are very happy that we found UpCloud and have been working with them as a partner for several years now, and moving more and more of our infrastructure to UpCloud. And a bit information about our architecture. So this is the stuff I like. What I can say is that we are building Hailey using microservices, of course, and prepare for some buzzwords here now. We are using domain-driven design as a basic foundation for how we're building. So say, for example, you have your browser. Your browser gives a command to our one of our microservices. We call it from the domain-driven design language an aggregate. This command might be to, well, update my social security number or something. A user is in Hailey and updates their information. Sends this to one of our microservices that we call an aggregate. Inside here, we have a layered architecture. This is a command API that receives the command from the browser. It sends an internal command in the application to the domain layer, which in turn validates the command and ensures that it's a valid command. If it's valid, then we produce an event and store in our event log. Hailey is a heavily event-sourced system, So that's why we have this construction. It usually fits very well with domain-driven design as well, when building researching requirements as well. The story doesn't end here. We have an event bus here that the aggregate uses to communicate what's actually happened in the business logic here. The event bus can be connected to predictions, again, word from domain-driven design. The prediction, it can be multiple prediction, of course. We're only going to have a look at one of them here. Can receive the event and handle it and update the internal database in the prediction, which in turn makes updated information in the query API of the prediction. And the browser can query for new information. And of course, the prediction can communicate with the browser and say that I have updated information, so you can go fetch it. So a lot of stuff involved here. This is CQRS design, if you're familiar with that pattern as well. So we separate the commands and queries into different applications. Usually a command through here with the event handling and the query from the browser takes 100 milliseconds or something, so it's a quite fast process. But in order for this to work, we of course need the infrastructure for this. And on Azure, we were using web apps for the command side here. We were using Azure Functions for the event handlers. We were using Azure Service Bus for the event bus. And for the databases, we used a mix of Cosmos DB and MS SQL databases. And if we have a look here at how we have been solving this with UpCloud instead, one of our focus was that it shouldn't be that hard to switch. So we could keep our deployment pipelines in the same way, so that we could reuse the infrastructure script that we already had. And for Azure Web Apps, we instead set up virtual machines with the Windows 2022 running IIS. Quite convenient. It was minor changes to our deploy pipelines. We had a larger problem with Azure Functions, since serverless can be quite hard to run on other platforms. But we found a solution for that, which is using hosted services instead inside our APIs. Hosted services actually works better for us. It's a more convenient way to manage this serverless functionality, that you can have timer triggered functions or service bus triggered functions and so on. For databases, we are now using Postgres instead. For event sourcing, I can really recommend this, because it's a very good database for storing JSON data and querying JSON data. We really don't use the relational stuff in Postgres or MS SQL for that part either. So it's mostly for just an event log, but it works fine. And for the event bus, we are instead moving to Valkey and using the PubSub functionality in Valkey. Azure Service Bus has a lot of more functionality, but it's not really necessary when we were questioning ourselves, what do we really need for asynchronous communication within the application. So Valkey actually works quite well for us and is very quick in the communication. Yeah, had a question? Exactly. So we can, instead of using the Azure the service bus here, we can use Valkey. What we don't get is to have persistence in the subscriptions. But we don't really need that, because we have constructed our predictions to get up to speed like every couple of minutes anyway. Kafka is also a very large framework to use. And what we would have gotten with Kafka is kind of a duplicate source or truth for our events. And we didn't really want to dig into that, because in event sourcing, you shouldn't change the history, but sometimes it's really nice to change history to solve some bugs, at least. So And what I can say is that we are almost there, moving all our infrastructure now from Azure to UpCloud. And it's working very well. Before starting this move as well, we did some benchmarks, and we were really happy to see that the performance was really, really good. I think we had, in average, half the response time from our APIs when running this way on UpCloud instead of running them as web apps on Azure. And our future is that we are probably going to move this our entire application into Kubernetes instead. It was a bit of a larger work doing that, so we started to move to fulfill the GDPR compliance requirements. But in the future, we also want to leverage the additional functionality we can get with Kubernetes, and making the applications more resilient. Some of the stuff we still have at Azure that we haven't really solved yet, and we'll see what we're going to do with that. That's services that don't process personal data, so we can remove Azure as a sub-processor, as a GDPR sub-processor anyway. But we are still using services like the cloud configuration, secrets management, application monitoring with application insights. We are using DNS management, SignalR, and static web apps as well. And we're going to try to find solutions for that as well, because our goal is to kind of leave Azure completely. But for GDPR compliance, I think the compute part is already moved now. So I hope with that I have given you some inspiration for how you can reconstruct and remodel your own applications. And in case you want to discuss this further, you'll meet me outside outside there. So thanks a lot from me and from our development department.
Thank you very much.
Well, it would have been hard if we had rewritten them as serverless functions, but since we have rewritten them as hosted services in our API, I think we are now a bit future-proof there as well, in being able to move them anywhere, because they will run inside the APIs instead, in the usual application. Right, so I think we have actually made some trials, and since UpCloud provides a quite convenient way to just deploy Kubernetes Cloud, we have actually made some trials on some of our applications to make them run in Kubernetes. So it's not that hard for us to, instead of deploying the web apps to via web deploy to a Windows server, to just make them into a Docker image and run in a Kubernetes cluster. So it's not that far for us, actually. And since we have now refactored up our serverless parts, we can now run them on Kubernetes as well. So yeah, I'm optimistic. Well, it's not an American company that owns the server, so I don't think it falls really under that they have to give information to comply in the same way that it would do if Microsoft is the actual sub-processor of the personal data. So the CI/CD, since that part is not really covered, it doesn't use personal data. So we are using Azure DevOps for the CI/CD. We might move it as well because we want to get rid of Microsoft really as a move partnership, but we haven't really found a good way to do that anywhere else. So of course there's challenges. There were lots of trials. I think the main part was us realizing that our CI/CD pipelines were not as generic as we would have liked them to be. So there was manual labor involved in actually like moving configuration values and so on. And that led to some bugs. Because moving, it's usually a manual labor that causes bugs. So knowing that, we would maybe have taken on the challenge a bit differently and moved the secret management as well to a more robust way of doing it. Otherwise, with UpCloud for a wish list, well, maybe the stuff on my service is still at Azure. So if we can take that as a wish list, maybe. The basic rationale for us for moving to UpCloud was really the GDPR compliance. But I can vouch for as well the parts that previous speaker was speaking about as well, with reduced costs. We have the loading times are better. And I would say as well that the customer service is a bit different from what we have experienced on Azure.